everybody, and thank you for joining me today. It's Allan Laboucan with the Rocks and Stocks News website. Another of our interviews with CEOs from junior mining companies that have exceptional projects. And in this case, I think a very undervalued proposition on the stock. And we're going to talk with Darwin Green and tell everybody why we think that this is a compelling story. Darwin, you've got a couple projects, one in Ontario, one in Alaska, that look quite compelling. Let's chat about that. Thanks for joining me.
Yeah, well, thanks for having me, Alan. It's good to be back chatting with you and update you and your viewers on what we're up to.
Yeah, in the last year or so, you guys made a lot of noise because of what's going on with your Alaska project, but recently you had some news out about your Ontario project that I'm quite excited about as well. It's much earlier days, but this is a highly prospective project that you guys are just sort of getting your teeth into.
Yeah, no, that's right. I mean, we've kind of had a fairly long-term strategic game plan with Ontario, and it started with consolidating some properties around our core land position that have gone underexplored for virtually underexplored for 90 years. And you know, we really like the geological potential. We really like the area, and it just took some time to piece it all together, and we were able to do that while most of the eyes were focused on Alaska. And it's our objective for the market to recognize our Ontario assets as really a second pillar of value creation for the company. And
so it was, in my understanding, it was kind of owned by a bunch of different groups, and then you guys have been able to consolidate it. And what really stood out to me initially upon looking at this was that you guys, this project had seen past production of extreme high grade, and it has a good structural story and very underexplored. Am I getting that all right, Darwin?
Yeah, no, that's correct. You know, it wasn't a huge production, but it was very, very high grade production. And you know, the showpiece museum specimens at the Royal Ontario Museum come from this mine. They came from where they sank the shaft, and there's lots of really interesting history to it. And it was really in private hands for a long time. We acquired the asset through the spin out and creation of HighGold from Constantine, and the CEO of Constantine, Garfield McVeigh, had a family connection. His great uncle worked at the mine in the 30s, and that's ultimately how Constantine got it. But yeah, you're exactly right. There was a patchwork of different land ownerships surrounding it, which always kind of hobbled the project because you couldn't really get after it the way you wanted to. And you know, a lot of those claims are patented claims that date back to 1910, 1912, back when this mine was first discovered. Many were locked up in family estates. Others were held by sort of small, you know, inactive companies. And so we put all that together. And at the same time as we're putting that together, we're doing a lot of compilation evaluation work. You know, we flew airborne geophysics. We did a big structural study using SRK consulting. We did a LiDAR survey. We've done some other ground geophysics, and we compiled all the historic data. And through that, we came out with a variety of targets. And so it's pretty exciting now to be getting after that. It's kind of our first real push.
On a regional sense, there's some big faults there. And for our non-geotypes, these faults are big cracks in the earth that open up and allow the gold-bearing fluids to make their way to the surface. And you're on important faults. You have some features in those faults that are quite compelling. And the most compelling is, again, going back to that high-grade mine story. These kind of deposits tend to have lots of depth potential, and you've really only scratched the surface, but at the surface, you've got extreme high grade.
Oh, that's absolutely right. And I might just take a minute to share my screen to kind of show you that sort of structural environment, if that makes sense.
Yeah, that would be awesome.
Just give me a sec here. So,
not a problem. And that's very fertile structures that are going through and around you there.
Oh, it is for sure. Yep. And that's kind of what I was going to highlight first here. Let's see here.
Perfect. I love these share screens. It gives a, these are good opportunities to sort of do a due diligence type conversation online when you're in Vancouver and I'm in Mexico.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, to set the stage or frame it for you, this is the kind of greater Timmins camp. So the Quebec-Ontario border is sitting out about here. This is a little over 100 kilometers east-west here. And shown on here, these dark black lines are some of the major sort of crustal structures. There's the Destor Porcupine, the Monroe Fault, and the Pipestone Fault, and each of these is associated with significant gold mineralization. They're not always right on the fault. Sometimes they are. Other times their splays are within sort of the area of influence of those structures. As you see here.
That's consistent with these orogenic type systems, right? It's often the secondary faulting coming off of those big regional faults that are how the, once the fluids are close to surface, they kind of spread out a little bit into those secondary faults.
Yeah, no, that's right. I mean, you look at Timmins itself, right in the core of Timmins, there's been 70 million ounces of past production, Canada's single greatest kind of concentration of gold production, if you will. And, a lot of these, Hoyle Pond, McIntyre, Bell Creek, they're kind of off the main break to some degree. And so, yeah, exactly to your point, you want to be around them. And the more they are and the more complexity there is, usually the better in terms of mineralizing environment. And so what we have here in this camp, we are one of the bigger landholders for a junior explorer within this region. And, remember that this is a very mature mining district, with a lot of competition and a lot of history. So it's not an easy place to amass a sizable land position. And, to demonstrate that, I mean, really, we had to do 14 separate deals to get this property package to the size that it is right now. And it's very meaningful land package, and it's really liberated it now to get out and explore it. So we're doing this kind of first pass. We've got, a half dozen targets that we completed 8,000 meters of drilling on.
I'll interrupt you for a second, yeah. Darwin, and I just wanted to highlight to people that Darwin and I used to work together. I know Darwin is a very excellent exploration geologist, and these claims were not sort of postage stamp kind of claim grabbing land. These all have strong geological stories, which is what you've been involved with all your career, including the time that we worked together.
No, that's right, Allan. Yeah. No, I mean, there's area plays where you just have land, and then there's really, I'm not about that. I'm about finding, good ground with good geological fundamentals. A good example here is Golden Mile. We're not drilling that right now, but we do intend to drill that later this year. And I mean, it really is a huge land position that's, staring right down on, 70 million ounces of past production. It's an interesting one. This is all
I can see right off the top is the intersection of one northeast to south, or northwest to southeast, and then it intersects the Pipestone Fault.
No, that's exactly right. And this is open to interpretation what exactly happens with the Pipestone. Does it merge with this one? Do you get a bunch of splays here? Either way, you've got that intersection and or flexure in the main fault, and it's a good place to be. What you don't see on here is the fact that out within this area, this is all lake covered. It's very shallow lake. I think at its maximum, it's about 10 feet deep. And you can drill on barge or you can drill on the ice. But really, that's led to this kind of not being explored. Like there's maybe a half dozen holes total drilled on this lake, and there's a few down here. There's a little historic nickel occurrence there. But what I really like here is that there's a tightly folded mafic ultramafic stratigraphy, and bringing it back to our history, Allan, there in the Red Lake camp. Those fold hinges, when you get the ultramafics and mafics together, are always a good place to be looking. You're looking for that fold axis intersection is about right angles to these structures. It also coincidentally
again, I'm going to put it into the non-geo terms, Darwin, and those flexures are again where the rocks are allowing fluids to make their way up, and there's 50 million ounces or something like that in the mined and resource categories in the Red Lake district. So you're not looking for something small here.
No, you're not. You know, certainly looking for big ounces. Although it's amazing that high grade zone that really made Rob McEwen and sort of the Red Leg mine. I mean, you could fit it. You know, there was so many ounces on the footprint of that was about the footprint of a of a house. You know, 2,000 square feet kind of thing. It's but you have lots of indicators of a lot more around that. You're not just looking for that needle in the haystack. I'm just saying you can concentrate these things in a pretty small area, But one of the neat things, that fold hinge, you know, this is high level conceptual, but if you look at this main mine trend here, where a lot of the bulk of the ounces came out, it's dead parallel to that fold axis out here. And I won't go too much deeper into the geology, but we really like it. These are the kind of places you find the next new deposit. It's current early stage. It's not our primary focus, but it's just an example of the opportunity of the properties we have out here.
Well, even your Monroe Croesus is not your primary, but I really like the potential. Let's talk about that.
Yeah, no, exactly. And so just to frame it for you, this eastern portion of the Greater Timmins camp has really come into focus of late. And that's for a couple of reasons. Not only have we consolidated ground, but other groups have as well, namely Moneta, who had the Golden Highway prospect, but they acquired the Garrison from 03. And now you've got 8.5 million ounces that you can see as one sort of development scenario held by a junior in a sort of a top tier mining jurisdiction. There's not a lot of juniors that control, not a lot of those type of approaching 10 million ounce endowments in these kind of jurisdictions that are held by juniors, or not held by seniors, I should say. So it's a pretty interesting asset. A little bit closer to us is Fen Gib. We know it well. There's been some consolidation there as well. In fact, we, with Constantine, sold some claims that sat within tens of meters of the conceptual open pit for that resource, and in other blocks. We know it well. That's 2 million ounces. It'll be 3 million ounces before you know it. It's about 1,500 meters from our claim boundary. McEwen Mining's Black Fox mine. Rob McEwen himself is an investor in HighGold, by the way. That's about 1,500 meters the other side of us. All of this is to say we know this is an area, portion of the crust that is endowed with gold. And on our core claim, we have an extreme concentration of that at the former Croesus mine.
Wow, look at that rock. Holy moly.
Beautiful stuff, and the average head grade of the mine was 95 grams per ton, but it didn't include the really high grade stuff. And we have oral record, and records of, there was quite a bit of production that was actually direct shipped in steel boxes to the mint that didn't go through the mill. So they didn't report that as part of this grade. And these kind of grades here, just to put that into perspective, a cubic meter of that type of mineralization would be north of $200 million worth of gold. It's obviously not all of the vein is going to be that kind of mineralization. But I'll also put in perspective, if you drilled a 10 centimeter wide, something this wide of that kind of mineralization at these kind of grades, it would be equal to a kilometer long drill hole at 38 grams per ton. So you don't need a lot of it. That's the point I'm trying to say. And it is this very unique concentration. And so that was the motivator for us to consolidate around the Croesus property. So as I say, we did a number of these different deals, and we haven't stopped. We're still adding to this, but we've got a very sizable land package that allows us to attack it in a meaningful way. And you can see the neighboring deposits around us here. So yeah, and bring it to your point, the structures, you got the Dester Porcupine, you got the Pipestone, you got the Monroe Fault. Croesus itself looks to be a linking structure between Monroe and Pipestone. Wow. We got this triangle structure. So a lot going on. And so we've gone out and,
So that secondary structure might connect between Monroe and Pipestone, and that's probably your conduit of how these high-grade gold fluids made their way to surface.
Yeah, no, exactly. And in fact, you can trace, a series of veins tracking in this sort of northeast, southwest direction from the Croesus mine all the way to the south. What was interesting is that basically there was no drilling whatsoever north of that mine. And so the news we had out, our last news release on Croesus, was from a drill hole about 100 meters north of the mine
Am I
And
seeing this correctly, Darwin? It looks like there's been an offset of that Monroe, right where that fault, that secondary fault hits that
you're
main one.
talking right here?
Yes.
Yeah. And I don't have a detailed map for you, but it was really, through our structural study and analysis, we felt this vein system at Croesus was part of an overall sort of structure or shear that trends in this direction. And that was how we rationalized going out and drilling to the north. And we picked it up. We picked up a vein right on trend. It was, we got about 13.5 grams over about a half meter as part of a wider zone that was 4.5 meters of 3 to 4 gram material. To us, that was huge. It was proof of concept. You're not going to hit this type of grade in every hole. The fact that you found that vein over a broader mineralized zone.
But in reality, in these kind of systems, Darwin, you could be feet from that kind of rock. Now that those high grades are still continuing to the northeast.
Yeah, no, exactly. So, there was, it wasn't a big market mover, but it was a huge breakthrough for us to have tagged that. And so we're very excited about that. And part of the reason they'd never drilled north is the claim boundary, the historic claim boundary, you got off the ground pretty quick. So we've now got all this block, it's over 1 kilometer long of trend now that we cover to the northeast, right up to that intersection with the Monroe. So, and as I say, our objective with this drilling round that we did, we had 6 targets with an objective of testing multiple ones to tee us up for a follow-up, see what we see, test some ideas, test some concepts. It included targets in here, included targets out here, included another target out here. So we've released just about 1,000 meters. Like, that program just wrapped up. We drilled 8,000 meters or just under it. And we released
you guys proceeded with more drilling even prior to getting your assay results back, which I thought was a very bullish sign about what you guys were seeing.
Yeah, no, for sure. And, we also hit another, what is interesting. So one of the things we know about that Croesus mine from the past work that was done is it seems there's geology is going like this and our veins are coming like this. And there's certain geologic units when that vein crosses where it seems to really light up and the gold really dumps out. You can go along trend and be a little lower grade and you get these spots that are just bonanza grade zones. It seems to be tied to more graphitic sediments, which we happen to be seeing as we go to the northeast. It's also an area where it gets brecciated and broken. There's sulfide and it is of this one specific flow unit. And we are now tracking that along trend where we can hit up that same vein within that unit. So in addition to this hole to the north, we actually hit another zone, another separate vein that crosses that unit. So that's what we released today. Stay tuned for some other drilling. We have some stuff, other targets that are more sort of almost Fen Gibbs style that are kind of along the Pipestone fault here, and then a variety of other types of targets. And concurrent with all this, we've done a very large IP survey across the whole property. There's a big intrusive that's never been drilled that sits here. That's right kind of mid-distance between Fen Gib and here, and not very far from this old gold mine here called Gold Pyramid that we like. So lots and lots of targets to chase. It's really coming into its own for us, and excited with how it's going.
I don't blame you, especially when you see rocks like you're showing on that sample there. It doesn't take a lot of that kind of rock to make up another swan zone like at Fosterville or what you're looking at in Red Lake.
No, that's right. I mean, it really is pretty special stuff. And we have access to 5 of these samples in a private collection. They're not part of the Royal Ontario Museum collection. They're ones that were collected in the 1930s when guys went back in and were remining. So there's it's really, really pretty stuff. You don't get gold anymore high grade than that in my
it reminds me of remember when we used to go to the PDAC and we would see those samples that were those specimens from Gold Corp. It reminds me of that kind of rock, quartz veins just riddled with gold.
Yeah, no, for sure. I mean, it really is a special property, and it's part of a very, commanding land position in Timmins. And, I don't think we've been seeing a lot of value for it in our share price. You know, if you back out the cash that we're sitting on 20 million cash right now, we got a market cap of about 70 million. You know, so that's given us 50 million enterprise value. You know, Johnson alone should be a double of that. But in our view, you know, putting a drill hole in the right place here will right that pretty quickly.
Yeah, one drill hole could be a difference maker, and you're in the right kind of rock that you could have a big difference makers.
Yeah, no, for sure.
So where are you now with pending drill results, and then where are you going? And then we'll get into Alaska briefly.
Yeah, so we did a little bit of drilling in Ontario just before Christmas. We had those results out, you know, included, you know, a 25 grammer over a meter of one of the other targets. That's separate from those two targets I was just talking about. We've released about 1,000 meters of, you know, our 8,000 meter program. I think we ended up around 7,600 meters. I can't remember exactly, but we just wrapped that drilling up. So we've got another, say, 7,000, you know, 7,000 meters of results to come out from Ontario. I expect we'll have the next round here out in the next couple of weeks, and we should have at least a couple more rounds there. Yeah, and so then we're going to take.
When will you follow up with some more drilling?
Yeah, no, it's a good question. So we're going to be rolling into our drill program in Alaska very soon. So we will see. You know, we could drill both concurrently. I expect that we'll take a pause and look at what we have, and then plan to follow up late summer, early fall in Ontario. But there's no reason we couldn't just go charging right out there if we felt so inclined. So, but really, I think the focus is going to shift to some degree to Alaska, because that's.
You know, and that's something we talked about in previous interviews, is that you have the ability to sort of keep a news flow going for the remainder of this year. So you've got a lot pending. You could get back in there at a moment's notice, but now you're gearing up for Alaska, which really caught the market's attention last year.
Yeah, I mean, it's you know, we think we are the high grade story and exploration gold story in North America, and you know, we're just showing you those samples at Croesus, but you know, as you recall, we drilled 6.4 meters of better than 500 grams per ton gold in Alaska this year, and that was at a prospect that was in 2021, sorry, and that was at a prospect that was 4 kilometers away from our main deposit.
So that gets you a metal factor of over 3,000, right?
Yeah, it's high. Yeah, it's very, very impressive intersection. And, you know, and as you know, at the main deposit, we have 50, 75, 100 meter type intersections of 10 to 20 grams per ton gold. So it's a very unique property. We have a resource established there. It was calculated in early 2020. It's sitting at all in indicated and inferred about 880,000 ounces gold equivalent at about 10 grams per ton gold equivalent.
And you guys have drilled additional holes that can enhance that resource, and some pretty nice results there too.
Yeah, no, for sure. So we've drilled about 27,000 meters since that resource within the greater resource area. It doesn't include the drilling we've done at the other prospects. And so we're right now updating that. You know, we told the market we would get it out in the first half of this year, and we're on track for that still, but probably at the very end of the first half of this year. So we expect that to come to market late May, and that's, you know, it'll be a moment in time. It'll be bigger. You know, when we acquired this asset, Westman, you know, you might remember Westman. They had a couple operating mines, and in the mid 90s were taken out by Boliden. The last time this was Johnson Tract was looked at prior to HighGold acquiring it and starting work in 2019 was in the mid 90s. And what they looked at doing was direct shipping ore. They were going to put a portal and an adit in, you know, just tunnel into the bottom of the deposit, mine it, and ship it south by barge to process at the Premier Mill. it didn't quite pencil out, but the resource they were looking at the time was about 500,000 to 600,000 ounces. It was kind of a break-even proposition. Gold was about $200-300 an ounce. You know, we've already expanded that with our last resource. We're gonna expand it again here with this current resource.
Now, did
And
they sunk an adit in there, right? So you have easy access to that.
they didn't actually do it. They looked at that. So they did
Okay.
they did some engineering studies that evaluated, you know, it's a short road that would have to be built and added, but they basically scoped out what a mine would look like, and we would see the same sort of process to get in there. And mostly highlighting that because that is a real option for this project where you can direct ship the ore off site.
But really easy access too, and that opens
Exactly.
up and down from that if you sink an adit in there.
No, exactly. I might have a slide. Do I have a? I'm going to see if I have a slide in here that that highlights that.
Yeah.
Yeah, there you go. So, whoops. You know, conceptually, you can imagine a portal on the side of the hill here. And, you know, we don't have a PEA or any engineering design plans out there. This is just, you know, whenever you find a deposit, you want to understand how you can mine it and what it looks like. We have the benefit of Westman having done this work. You know, they valued a road, and it's much lower cost from a mining standpoint, upfront capital. If all you're doing is drifting in a kilometer, you know, into the bottom of the deposit, and then you're mining your way up, than it is to, you know, have a shaft or a ramp down to the deposit. So pretty straightforward. This is the thickest, juiciest part of the deposit, so you get really quick payback from that area. We've been steadily expanding this down, so while you would mine up, we would anticipate you would also be mining down. So yeah, I mean, near-term catalyst, we've got some metallurgy. You know, this is a polymetallic deposit. It's important to understand how the metallurgy works, and we're going to update the resource. But probably more importantly, we're going to be back out there sometime in June with the drills turning, getting back after this. We haven't announced our resource yet, or no, sorry, we haven't announced our budget and plans for this year, but we should have those for the market soon. We're obviously very well cashed up to get after this, and we intend to do just that. You know, and just
what that is sort of meat and potatoes part of the story, but you've also hit some stuff that could really juice up the market because it already did once, and now you're going to follow up on it with a lot more knowledge.
Yeah, completely. And, you know, just to put it into context, you know, that those drill holes we've drilled and the results we've generated are Difficult Creek. You know, this is that sort of new prospect 4 kilometers northeast of our main deposit. About 6.5 meters are better than 500 grams. Yeah, there you go. Gold equivalent 3,800 or gram meter product. You know, pretty good company here. Osisko, Pretium, Newfound Gold, West Dome. You know, this is a group that creates this list. They're out of Australia. They take all junior companies, public disclosures. And
just off the top of my head, all of those companies have billion-dollar plus valuations based on their discoveries.
Yeah, no, that's right. That's my job, is to get us there. And you know, and I've probably told you this before. I mean, big picture, simplistic takeaway, you know, if you're generating these kind of results, there's usually more around. We proved that already with Difficult Creek, which was 4 kilometers away from the main deposit. And our main deposit, we made the list in 2019 and just missed it in 2010. So good place to be looking. More dollars you put in the ground, the more you find usually. You know, so this summer's program, what I imagine, you know, what we will be seeing is continued step out, sort of incremental expansion of the deposit itself. But probably the big excitement comes with the follow-up on this intersection of the zone at Difficult Creek. And we've talked about this geology before, Allan, but how we envision this is having a drill on this end, which has never been drilled at all. And obviously this is a big priority to follow up on this, because we didn't follow up last year. We had some holes that were drilled around it at the same time. And there's big broad intervals of moderate grade there, really quite respectable grade, punctuated by this out of this world grade. And so this will be the first place we're going to, is to step out and build off of this early success. But we're very bullish on the fact that the very highest soil and rock samples anywhere on the property even higher than on top of the main deposit, higher than right here, sit over here in an area that's not been drilled. The geology is covered by overburden and talus, so we need to drill it to find that bedrock source. But it bodes well, and our geologic model suggests that the key target horizon is fairly flat lying. We have a good model that we've developed from the main deposit area that provides us a bit of a roadmap for how to go about exploring for this type of system. You know, undoubtedly there'll be some differences, but at the main deposit, what we see is there's a key geologic unit that wants to host all the mineralization, and it sort of follows out along that. So that's what we're kind of chasing. So
that's a 1.2 kilometer horizon, and I'm seeing gold mineralization above and potentially below that target horizon.
Yeah, no, I mean, it seems to be the upper part of that horizon, but you're right. And we see this as a bit of leakage, if you will, that bodes well for there being mineralization at depth. We won't know until we drill.
That's 400 meters of leakage in some spots.
Yeah. And so pretty exciting. And there's going to be other prospects that we're going to drill as well. So it's, chomping at the bit here to get back out in the field. It won't be long before we do that. We'll update the market with the resource. It'll be bigger. Certainly, you know, a lot bigger than the original one that Westman looked at. We should be, you know, well north of 1 million ounces gold equivalent with this next round, and you know, more results from Ontario. So lots happening, Alan.
Yeah. So what's a ballpark of when you might get drilling up there in Alaska? You guys got plenty of cash. You got plenty of reasons to be pounding away with the truth machine. Yeah,
it's really a product of when the snow melts. We have an airstrip on site. It's a great airstrip for getting into the property in camp. And it's not that high elevation, but it's a place that seems to like collecting snow. So last year it took longer for it to clear. It was kind of latter part of June. The previous year airstrip was open June 1. So we're going to be at the mercy of Mother Nature here, but I imagine
maybe 6-8 weeks sounds like.
Yeah, I mean, I think a safe bet here is targeting mid-June, but you know, that's not very far away, really. I start thinking about it.
And you've got the potential to get more results from Ontario, and then your resource in between now and drilling.
Yeah, no, exactly. And I think if anyone looks at our share price right now, you'll see that it was definitely sold off this last month. So it's, you know, management directors, if you look at the insider buying, we've all been buying because it's a bit of an anomaly in our view. The share price right now, it's an opportunity. You know, it's the lowest cost we've been in quite a long while. It's well under any of our financings for the last 2.5 years. So it's a good time to pick some up. And yeah.
Well, if smart money's paid higher, I always like the opportunity to pay lower than smart money.
Yeah, it's funny. I mean, it's funny too. You get these big funds that'll be some that, you know, they got to reposition things, you know, get more into energy metals or something else. And, you know, there was a little bit of pressure that's through now. And I expect as we approach the drill season here and get some drill results out, it should be only up from here. And, you know what?
Sorry.
One thing I did want to share with you before I wrap up here. I've just been, you know, thinking a little bit about, oops, that's not where I want to be.
I sure like those rock pictures, man. You never offend me by showing that.
Right on. I just want to touch on, you know, our resource, our past resource. We had an incredibly high cutoff. You know, this is the average underground mining grade when the Timmins underground mines at 4 grams, and that was our cutoff. So undoubtedly, you know, we're going to have to go with a lower cutoff because the metal prices now are a lot higher than they were when we than what we used for that resource, which is like $13.50 gold and you know, $1.
Wow, that's nearly 1 million ounces with a cutoff of 4 grams. Those are the statistics you need.
Yeah, no, it's beautiful. And so the other thing I really wanted to highlight, this is really 2 deposits in one. You know, these are great. If just straight gold grade here, 6 grams, that's a great high grade underground mine. And same if you look at copper, lead, zinc here, that's a great base metal deposit. So we have very serious co-products here, and there are some folks that are gold purists. We really like, the base metals that come with this because they provide you a natural hedge. And the other thing that
Nothing
when
wrong
you
with paying for your gold production with your secondary products.
no, exactly. And what's nice about this from a political standpoint, I think you've seen a strategic shift globally for people understanding the strategic value of clean energy metals and critical minerals. And so we like it. We like it economically. We think copper and zinc are going to fly. This is prepared by the, I think it's what is it, the International Energy Association, something like that. But these are the commodities critical to the clean energy future. And so they're really nice byproducts to have for both political and social support. And I love seeing that North America is finally waking up to the fact that we need a strategic domestic supply of these metals.
Absolutely. Well, Darwin, I want to be respectful of your time. I know you got another one to get to here pretty quickly. Let me wrap it up, and we'll talk a little at the end there. So there you go, folks. I started by saying I think that HighGold has two great projects, possibly three, two of those in Ontario. I'm really bullish on what they have in Alaska and that Monroe Crisis. I love seeing rock samples like that that come from underground mining. This company has lots of money in the till. They've got lots of targets to drill. They're going to be generating a lot of news. So not only are they undervalued, but they've got plenty of catalysts ahead of them. And they're currently at a valuation that's cheaper than what smart money was putting money in for. Those smart monies include some pretty impressive investors and other mining companies. So have a look at HighGold. HIGH is their symbol. And as always, my shows are for information purposes only. It's important to speak with your financial advisors before making any investment decisions. And the most important thing is do your homework. Check out their presentations. Darwin was showing us some slides that highlight the work that they've done, but do your homework, read the news releases, check out these interviews. I've done more with, you check out my YouTube channel at Rocks and Stocks News, and you'll find more coverage. So we'll be talking a lot with Darwin in the future. Have a great day, and we'll talk to you soon.